Kung Fu Panda 4 just came out, and it's a tough one to review. I love the original movies, and wholeheartedly believe that the Kung Fu Panda trilogy is a masterpiece hiding as a bunch of kids' movies. I mean, if you have to be a little kid to enjoy Kung Fu Panda 2, throw me into a kindergarten class. I'll have them making shoes for me in a week. But to be honest, even though I loved the Kung Fu Panda trilogy, I didn't think a fourth one would be necessary going in. And after watching it, my mind hasn't really changed. Po went through his full hero's journey and character arc throughout the trilogy, literally becoming the Kung Fu master he envisioned himself as in the very first scene of the first movie. So Kung Fu Panda 4 would obviously be made to set up for the next Dragon Warrior. And while this could be good, I was just worried about this given the history of great trilogies getting destroyed by bad sequels. Like the amazing first 3 Indiana Jones movies, followed by the shitty diaper that was the Crystal Skull, then the shittier, leaky diaper that was the Dial of Destiny. To be honest, the handing of the torch to the squirrel thing wasn't my problem with this movie. I actually think the way that they set up Zen as Po's apprentice was done pretty well, and they never took away from Po in the process. He stayed true to his character and was still whooping some ass. However, I definitely don't think that in her current state, Awkwafina could carry a movie on her own. She really needed the Kung Fu Panda with her to hold my attention. It's not that she was unlikable, she was just kinda boring. Now, a way I think they could have made this new Dragon Warrior better is if they replaced Awkwafina's character with me. I have been trained in the art of Kung Fu since I was an infant, and protect the city at night by putting random tweakers in a whooshy finger hold. They should have chose me, man. Now, I will give credit where credit is due. One thing they did great in this film were the visuals and fight scenes. It looked amazing, honestly surpassing the other 3 in just how good it looked. And the fight scenes had some great choreography. It was really refreshing to see Po actually use the skills he acquired in the trilogy and pass on some of the skill to the squirrel. And the movie was also pretty entertaining for the most part. It was lighthearted throughout its entirety, and there was a shit ton of jokes, like to a point where I got pissed off. And Po is known to engage in some funny business on a regular basis. But in this movie, every single character was like a monkey jumping on a bed. It was constant. There was about 1 minute of the whole movie with a serious tone. And it didn't help that the B-plot of this movie was about Po's birth father and Goose Father's goofy hijinks. I did like their chemistry, but the main plot was just as goofy as the side one, so I was getting constantly jumped by tomfoolery. And while staying lighthearted makes sense for a normal kids movie, the Kung Fu Panda storyline isn't normal, and has used dark and serious themes tastefully along with the shenanigans throughout its trilogy, which is why it's so special. But this movie completely lacks that, and felt bland because of it. I mean, the main villain definitely doesn't seem like a good person and tries to be intimidating, but she has no meaningful connection with Po, and only a rushed exposition dump of a connection with Zen. This meant that the driving conflict of this movie never felt imposing to me. There wasn't a single point in the movie where I thought anything bad was gonna happen to Po, Mr. Ping, or Awkwafina. So I wasn't invested in the actual story, I was just looking at the pretty colors. But the biggest part of why the Kung Fu Panda movies are so loved is because of the memorable and menacing villains like Tai Lung, Lord Shen, and Kai. And even apart from all the reasons I already talked about, there's no way this villain's theme could compete with the nectar of the gods that Kai had. Speaking of the original villains, they brought them back from the dead in this movie because of some shapeshifter bullshit. This was a major selling point to get me to watch this movie, and I think that holds true for a lot of people. And the idea of seeing Tai Lung face Po again after getting whooshy finger spanked in the first movie could have been an incredible moment, but instead they locked him and every single other villain in a cage for the whole movie. They really just used these characters for the nostalgia points and then told the viewer to kick rocks, giving Shen and Kai 0 lines of dialogue. This pissed me off more than any other problem with the movie, and I'm about to spoil the ending, so if you haven't seen it and you still care, go ahead and skip to this time frame. So after Po and Scrap from Ice Age beat the chameleon, all of the villains get released from their cages, and instead of, running away or beating the tired Po's ass, they all bow down to him in unison and willingly go back to the spirit world. And look, I saw the spirit world in the 3rd movie. That place does not look exciting. You're telling me that these ruthless, power-hungry freaks get pulled out of purgatory and get given a second chance in the real world, and get a sudden change of heart and walk back into the fields of Asphodel because they're nice guys now? The only one I can kind of get behind here is Tai Lung, because he got humbled pretty hard by Po in the first movie, and actually had a few lines of dialogue in this one. But you're telling me that the Birdman, who had a chance to turn a new leaf without Po holding a grudge, but instead killed himself because he was so blinded blinded by hatred and rage, just decided to become a good guy without saying anything? You could tell me Mr. Ping was actually Poe's birth father and his big ass hatched out an egg and I would believe that more than this horse shit. They also had Poe's birth father in the room when this went down. He was standing next to Lord Shen and had no problem at all, not a thought going through his head. He killed your wife, jackass. They could have just had a single scene of him looking angry at Shen and it would have been alright. But nah, I guess he's just a forgiving guy. Apparently they didn't have the budget to bring the Furious 5 back, which I can understand. It definitely wouldn't be cheap to cast Jackie Chan, Angelina Jolie, and the guy who stole the chipmunks again. And this movie didn't really need the Furious 5 for the story, but I think they could have made the story better if they included them. Also, they should have kept tigers in because tigers are just cool as hell. Like lions but all orange and shit with stripes. They're awesome. I hope lions get insecure looking at the tigers. Overall, I wasn't too satisfied with this movie. Along with the problems I already went through, the first part was just boring, and a lot of key moments of character building and betrayal felt really rushed. So with this in mind, I'm gonna give Kung Fu Panda 4 a Tweedle patented score of 5 out of 10. It was just a pretty mid movie in my opinion. I was entertained, but there was nothing memorable about it. And compared to the first 3, it's just complete dog shit. So if you haven't watched Kung Fu Panda 4, you can. And if you have, skadoosh that subscribe button for me. Also, why didn't she just shapeshift into some stairs? Poe's big ass would be done for.